On August 18th, the day after the 2019 World's Fair of Money, a small group of numismatic book lovers hopped on a bus down to Champaign, Illinois, to visit the expansive and highly impressive collection of Dan Hamelberg. After a quick lunch, some of the attendees presented Hamelberg with a custom-made guest book to commemorate the invasion of Champaign.
I'm Dan Hamelberg, and this is my library that we're standing in. I collect American numismatic literature. I have some 13,000 auction catalogs of American numismatic coins, which I have harbored here in shelves that are around us and in other rooms in the house. I have some 1,500 linear feet of book space in different rooms in the house. So that's what, like 5 football fields. So it's end to end. It's a bug. I mean, when it bites you, you just start collecting. But I started with coins. Of course, if there were no coins, there would be no books about coins. When you go into an auction room and you plan on bidding on coins, sometimes auction fever will set in, or other events may set in the auction room that are distracting or cumbersome. So I took it upon myself to do some study before I would go for the coins that I earmarked for future sales. And I found it very helpful that if I had the catalogs from a previous sale where that coin sold from. Because sometimes when you go to a sale, it will say from someone else's collection or sold previously 20 years ago somewhere. So if I had that catalog, then I could look up that coin, see what it sold for then, and compare the economic times then to now, and enter the auction room with some designated plan. After a while, it became apparent to me that I had most all the catalogs from a certain auction company. And if I had, say, another 15 or 20 or 25 catalogs from that particular company, I'd have all their catalogs. Now, I didn't need those catalogs, but I thought, well, wouldn't it be nice if I had those, just for the sake of collecting? Then it started. And so Martin Gennerke prepared a computer list of all the known American auction catalogs. And there's some 13,000 that started after the Civil War to date. And I'm missing about 200. And along the way, I've collected the fixed price list from the dealers. I have some original manuscripts in my library as well, and general books. So the bibliomania really hit me hard, and the result was building additions to my house.
The library truly is massive, and far too much to see in an afternoon, but everyone did their best. A few gems were pulled out and waiting on a separate table, including some truly unique pieces.
What I have here is the original manuscript for a book by a gentleman named John Hickox. It was published in 1858, and it was the very first book-length treatment on American numismatics. So it's a very famous landmark book, but it's not just the book itself, it's the original manuscript. And what I understand is that, many years after, his family took his loose leaf manuscript, put it all together, and bound it together in this volume. So to have something like this, which is unique and totally associated with one of the most landmark books in American numismatic literature, it's like one of the holy grails for guys like us who collect these things. I remember I was in the sale room when Dan bought this. I was quite jealous, but everybody congratulated him afterwards, and we all knew that it would be a highlight of the library, and it sure is.
This is the inventory of the Colonel E.H.R. Green collection. Green was famously known as the son of the Witch of Wall Street, and so he was well funded to pursue any number of different collectibles, and coins were one of them. And when he died in '36, his collection kind of went into a black hole. No one really knew where it was, and it was in estate litigation for many years. There was an inventory made by the famous dealer F.C.C. Boyd in 1937, of which only 2 copies are known, and there's one here in the Hamelberg collection. And this details all of the coins from the Colonel Green collection, and the collection itself eventually came out in the early 1940s. But this is a special item It's never been published, only available to the one or two collectors that happen to own a copy, and we have one here today in the Hamelberg collection.
Mixed among the shelves were plenty of other collections, including globes, clocks, and Revolutionary War maps. However, there were plenty of rare and exciting books waiting to be found.
This is a book, one of the earliest books on United States large cents. It's the first study of what's now called the Middle and Late Dates. As you can see, a very small book, and it's a very rare book. This was published first in 1881. It was republished just 2 years later in 1883. It was written by a guy named Frank Andrews. He was a New Jersey collector, and he wasn't satisfied really with the first version of this, which he only printed 40 copies of, and so it got a very, very limited circulation. So he redid it in 1883. The 1883 edition you see now and then. There are probably as many as 100 copies still out there. But it's also small and paper covered, so its condition is often not good. This first one, though, since he only did 40 copies to begin with, and since he did a revision of it just a couple years later, people didn't save the first one. It's just a little paper-covered pamphlet. It's not something that if a collector dies, their survivors are going to look at this and say, well, it can't be worth anything. So, they barely survive. There are only a few of these known. This one is, in addition to being rare, this one happens to have an inscription in it that's quite neat. This was given to a client by the early coin dealer, Elliott Woodward. And the inscription here is to that collector, compliments of Elliott Woodward. So here we see, one of the more prominent numismatists of the period recognizing how important this is, and passing this along to someone who would appreciate it. But like I said, there are probably, if I had to guess, and it is just a guess, I'd say there might be 5 of these around. It's an extremely rare item and a really special book.
A few months ago, I was back up in New York, my home state. I was talking with some of the collectors up there, and we were all wondering and just bantering about certain things. And one of the guys asked me, do you ever know what happened to Jackson Storm's collection? And none of us knew, but I did say to him, I assume that a fellow by the name of Roy Rauch, who was a dealer, probably got the collection and dispersed it. Now here we are in Dan Hamelberg's home, and he has a billion different things. And I'm over by the Del Bland archives, the collector's notes that he had kept. Del Bland was known for that. I picked out the miscellaneous binder, and I'm thumbing through, and just by chance, here I have the list of Jackson Storm's large cents, his inventory. Now, it doesn't get any better than that for me. So when we're all ready to say, well, it doesn't exist, it exists here.